Good morning, everyone. How are you this fine Monday morning? Allow me to get the screen share going, and we'll get the show on the road, as they say. All right, so a little bit of a soft start to the morning. The market's still in a crazy strong uptrend. I'm not sure anybody really understands what's holding the market up. Honestly, everybody I know has been looking for a correction for the longest time, but so far nothing. The stock market on a one-way rally, it just keeps pushing higher. The overnight here, the early Globex from Sunday morning until now, relatively quiet. Oh, Anthony is a little bit bullish this morning. He says, I see 6,300 as a target, and after that, 6,312, 6,335. So a very bullish slant there from Anthony. 6,300, I think, is probably a given. You know, the markets, they like big round numbers like that. So I can definitely see a run towards 6,300. Whether they'll make it all the way or whether they're going to come up a little bit short, well, we'll have to wait and see. But we're definitely long here this morning. I see a couple new names in the room this morning. Welcome. What you're looking at here is the whole DTS package along with the Raptor. So here on the top left, I have the Hawk Scalper. Top right, I've got the Falcon Swing Trader. Bottom left is the Eagle Trend Trader, and the bottom right, of course, is the Raptor. I'm following the NASDAQ on this monitor. I've also got the E-mini S&P and gold on my other monitor. But please feel free to ask for any market which is of interest to you, and I will do my best to accommodate. Likewise, if you have any questions, please don't be shy about asking questions. Yeah, Anthony says I called 6,300 when we were at 6,200. Let's just go back here to 6,200 for a little bit, and I'll show you what I mean about the market responding to big numbers. So here's 6,200. So you can see the market came down, hit 6,200, and then we kind of bottomed out at that point. Continued higher from there. So whenever you encounter those, like I say, those really big numbers, they're always worth paying attention to. The half numbers also tend to be rather sensitive, so 6,250 or in that region, they're not always going to fall exactly on the value. And then again, to a lesser extent, the whole numbers. So 6,260, 6,270, 6,280, 6,290. And here we are at 6,300 now. Nice little start to the morning here on the hard edge bounce, right out of the open. That's the number 3 signal. Now with your number 3 signal, you need to remember there's two parts to every signal. So the two parts to the number 3 signal, because it's a continuation signal, first off, you have to have something to continue. Right? If you're looking on the left side of your chart and you don't see anything to continue, if you don't see anything resembling a trend, well, then there's no trend to continue, is there? But I think, you know, we can, even though the market was in a little bit of a sideways drift here, given the strong rally on Friday, and Thursday for that matter, that was a tradable moment, I think. And the second part to the equation, of course, is we need to intersect the hard edge. Now, with the Raptor, we've got 2 hard edges. And so sometimes when the market's really, really moving fast, you're going to get a hard edge bounce off of the first hard edge. The second hard edge seems to be a little bit more predictable, but if you have a strong trending market, as we did the other day, you're not going to get a very deep retrace. So you may have to settle for something that develops a little bit closer. All right, so those are your 2 parts to the number 3 signal. First, it's a continuation signal, so you need something to continue. Second, you're going to look for an intersection of the hard edge or something very, very close to it. Yeah, Anthony says strong uptrend, stay long. I think you're probably going to do better to the long side, at least for the immediate future. It's going to be easier buying on pullbacks rather than breakouts, I think. What tends to happen when a market is in such a strong uptrend as what we have now is that sooner or later it is going to develop into a trading range. Most people ignore this fact that there's really only 2 phases in a market. You're either trending or you're moving sideways. Duh, right? But people don't take that into consideration. So I think we've got, you know, a reasonably strong uptrend here. There's no question about that. Breaking down here below 62.50 is going to encourage more buying. But I think what we got is we got a lot of traders probably looking at this a little bit more on a broader scale, looking at it like a wedge. And even, I suppose, short term, we've got traders looking at it like a wedge. Maybe a wedge like this, a really, really steep wedge. Yeah, I can see that. Problem with wedges like this, inclining wedges have a tendency to break short. This is why I said a lot of traders for a long time have been looking for a bearish breakdown, because a lot of traders see a great big inclining wedge here. I suppose, or an inclining trading range as well. Well, the buyers put the boots to it a couple of months ago, and now you can draw your wedge like this, you can draw your wedge like this. Either way, it all shows the same thing. It shows an extremely fast, bullish market, and these types of situations have a tendency to break down. Now, they're not necessarily going to break down into a full-blown downtrend, so don't, you know, panic about cashing in your stocks and your 401s and all that sort of stuff. But they will have a tendency to start to develop into a little bit of a sideways trading range. So we've been in a trending market After that, the market will start to move into a sideways trading range. It's just the nature of the markets. And then after they've been in a sideways trading range for a while, then they're going to break out again, either higher or lower, and begin trending. So when you're looking at a chart, you need to determine, first of all, is the market trending or is it non-trending? If it's trending, well, you know which way you need to trade. If it's non-trending, well, then you're going to adopt perhaps a slightly different strategy. Let's take a look here at the corn market, which is also a pretty good example. So here we have corn, obviously was in a sideways trading range back here. It was trending for a couple of months through here, and now I think it's pretty safe to say we're in a sideways trading range again with corn. Right? So if I'm trading corn, I'm going to be looking for buying opportunities at the bottom. I'm going to be looking at selling opportunities near the top, or I'm just going to stand aside until I get a breakout and a confirmation of the breakout. What does that look like? Well, here we have had a breakout. Right, the market broke, retested, recommitted. Actually, it did it twice, didn't it? Recommitted to the downtrend. This is where you can start to get into your trade with a high probability outcome that the market, you're going to be on the right side of the market. More aggressive traders would have started shorting way back here. But it's, you know, if you're looking for your high probability trade, that's these couple of weeks through here. I think I've shared with you a story about a fellow I know, actually, fallen out of touch with him, but he trades 3 or 4 times a year. Yes, that is right. He trades about 3 or 4 times a year. That's it. But when he trades, he knows when he has his high probability setups. And he'll go in, obviously he'll go in pretty heavy. And he'll make all the money he needs on those short little moves. He's not looking for a lot of action. He's looking to be right. Okay, here is the gold market. Gold, you can see, in a very strong uptrend from July to September. Then it started to consolidate a little bit. Right now, it's hard to tell whether this is going to be a trading range or if it's going to develop into a great big trading range. But I think it's safe to say it's no longer in a trend, is it? I think it's kind of going sideways. So when I'm trading gold, I'm looking at this. We're here near the bottom. So when I get my number 2 signal to buy, my counter trend signal, knowing that I'm closer toward the bottom of the trading range, or where the support is in the market, I'll probably feel a little bit better about being bullish. If the market gets up here somewhere, say to the 1310 mark, I'll be a little bit more open to selling opportunities. If we break 1310 or the whole 1300 region and we get a breakout and a retest, well, then I'm obviously going to be a little bit more bullish until we get up here to around 1360. And this is how it goes. This is how you trade. You try to find out who is in control, either the buyers or the sellers, and then you trade accordingly. Let's see, what other one can I show you? Here we'll look at copper. Because copper is another market that almost seems to be developing into a little bit of a sideways trading range, doesn't it? I think it's pretty obvious that this part, the market was trending, but this last little bit, I don't know, it's starting to look a little bit more like a sideways range, isn't it? Certainly this region is. Sometimes if you can't tell, you just have to wait. But if copper gets back up here to 32,500, I will be looking to short. And if it gets back down here to 2,900, I will be looking to buy. All right, let's get back here to the action on the NASDAQ. Yeah, Anthony makes a good point here. Anthony says, but you got to look for Black Friday sales prep. I think the market factored all that in, weeks ago. I don't think the NASDAQ is rallying so much now because of Black Friday. Although, of course, didn't Apple and Samsung both announce new telephones or something silly like that? Well, I shouldn't say silly, sorry. If you went out and bought your new iPhone, I do apologize. I'm still working off my iPhone 3. No, I'm not joking. It's funny when I go into the cell store because the clerks there, they're all, 18, 19, 20 years old, and they look at my telephone and then they look at me. Your phone is so old. Well, actually, my phone's not that old. You were probably 15 when I bought it, so it seems like it's old to you, but it's not that old. Yeah, Mark, you could have a point too. Mark says the rally is probably more earnings related, in my opinion. And it is earnings season, of course. We're in the fourth quarter. And everybody will be looking for the big sales in November, December, of course, as we get closer to the holidays. What is it now, 50 days, 52 days, something like that? Woohoo! All right, well, we're settling in here a little bit. We're about 20 minutes into the session. Hey, Marlene, well done. Marlene says, sometimes the first trade of the day is really good. Took that number 3 signal. The first trade of the day idea was actually first put to me by Russell, and he was looking here at the Eagle. He was saying, hey, Eric, that first in-sync Eagle signal of the day has a tendency to work out pretty well most times. And sure enough, I did a little bit of research on it, and Russell was absolutely correct. So here would be your first in-sync Eagle signal today. Friday, your first in-sync signal was here. You had to wait a little bit for it. It took a little heat, but it eventually drifted down to your profit objective. And let's see, we'll go back one more day. The first in-sync signal was right there. I don't know if that actually got to the profit target or if it came up short. We'll take a look. No, it came up a little bit short. If you were running a break-even trigger, you could have got out of break-even, or depending how quickly you were on your stops. But the fact of the matter is, it does work most of the time. So people have asked me, hey, Eric, how do I do that on the Raptor? Well, it's exactly the same thing. You just have to have the nerve to do it. I don't usually have that sort of nerve. And if you keep the big picture in mind, you'll probably do a little bit better. So here's the first in-sync Raptor signal of the day right here. And you can see no trouble at all finding our high probability profit target and actually getting a little bit more out of it. I don't like to see this many warning dots printing in a row. See, it almost looks like a bunch of freckles here on the chart. This shows you actually a market struggling a little bit. We're getting half of our signal parameters met, but we're not getting enough there to actually produce another buy signal. Let's go back another day and we'll look at the first in-sync signal. Here on Friday would have been right here, I suppose, or well, this is technically counter trend. If we're going to look at in sync, there's your first in sync signal right there, that number 1 signal to sell, and it too had no difficulty. The nice thing about taking the first signal of the day is you're betting on momentum. You're betting that there's going to be some momentum out of the open and that the market will at least give you a little bit of a ride, which for us is not so bad because our targets, we're not trying to hold on for the entire session. So our targets are a little bit more reasonable. This would be the other day, and here is your first in-sync signal. Now note, you would have to wait 38 minutes before you got that signal. This is your first in-sync signal. But once you got it, it did work out. So I suppose if you have the patience and the nerve, for that matter, you'll probably be okay. Nicely done, Mark. I see Mark's another one who likes to take those early signals, and again, he's looking for momentum, some momentum to carry him through. Mark says, I took that first micro-macro cross here on the hawk. He says, I finally got out with 328 profit. Nicely done. Very often you'll see me try to run out that first trade. And again, all I'm looking for is a little added momentum out of the open. Okay, Anthony's asking, can you take a look at the Aussie dollar for me, please? Sure. Oh, it's not loaded yet. Oh, I put it on that chart. 1 second. All right, here is the Aussie dollar. And I put it on the faster settings, our 446 settings. Here around near the North American Open, it looks like we had a couple with trend signals. First we had the trend change signal, then we had the hard edge bounce signal. Oh, sorry, that was Friday session. Today, looks like we're going to work a possible trend change signal, a possible number 2 signal developing here, but so far, things a little bit light on the Aussie dollar today. The day before, that was a fairly active day. Had a couple of decent signals printing there. And the day before that as well, so I don't know why the Aussie dollar is so quiet this morning, but it certainly is. Pretty quiet through the overnight. Tonight's session will probably be a little bit more active. And that's just because of the time zone differences, of course. Okay, so we're in a definite sideways drift, and the hawk already into yellow bars. So things, to my eye anyway, starting to look a little bit weaker at this point. Maybe, maybe kinda. Oh, maybe I spoke too soon. Here comes a little bit of buying. Might get a late filter entry signal here on the Falcon. The late filter entry, of course, occurs when the filter goes out of sync, comes back into sync. The trend line itself never changes color, and then we're going to produce a buy signal. So we're going to get the warning dot and then eventually the triangle hash mark if all the signal parameters are met. All right, well, we're still kind of consolidating here a little bit. Don't have a signal per se, although, like I said, we are getting a little bit of a bullish push through here. All right, look for that possible late filter entry signal to develop. I need to step out for just a moment. I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. All right, right, so we did get the late filter entry signal printing here. It's a little bit of a tough one though, because there is a possibility we're going to see a test of the extreme. Okay, essentially a double top. Oh, Marlene says there was a better entry on the mini Dow. All right, so we'll just simulate this one. I don't think, given the way the market's kind of moving about today, I'm not sure I would go in with 2 contracts. But it would certainly be worthwhile on a single. Oh, we got to get over that hump. Got to get over this high here. Looks to be around 63.09, 63.08 quarter. All right. I think I picked the wrong bar. 63.08 3/4. All right, there's the push. Oh, and there's the breakout. And the crowd goes wild. And that little hop was just tagging a few exit orders, which would have, from the sellers, which would have been buy orders. Sellers piling it back on now. And still the possibility here of a double top style formation. In which case, the Raptor here should produce a counter trend signal. So let's go to that. So we're watching a test of the extreme, right? The extreme is the high. We're watching the market retest. Okay, Marizo, I'll get to your question in just a second. I'm waiting for that number 2 signal to develop. I'm waiting for a warning dot. The number 2 signal, of course, is the counter trend signal. And I may be getting a little bit aggressive on the short side. Buyers might still rally it up from here. But that little test of the extreme double top type thing is making me a little bit more open to the idea of selling. Yeah, I know, Anthony says we've got a strong uptrend. Yes, we do. Like I said, we don't have a sell signal yet. Not even saying we're going to get a monster move to the short side. However, if we do produce a counter trend signal, that's the number 2 signal, we'll be looking here at the hard edge as a profit objective. So somewhere around 62.95, 96. All right. Maurizo is asking, sorry for a trivial question. No questions are trivial, but Maurizo asks, but is there a track record of the signals that are shown in this chat room? No. And the reason that is because this is not a what you would call a trade call room. While I do try to point out what I believe to be high probability signals, the purpose of this room is twofold. Part one is to try to show you good signals, of course, but maybe the bigger picture is to try to show you how to use your tools effectively. If you haven't noticed already, sometimes I get off on my little tangents explaining stuff, and as a result, we may end up missing signals while I'm doing things. So no, there is no track record. Now that said, I do record the trades at TradeView. All right, here now is the counter trend signal. Notice we haven't produced the number 2 just yet. Let's see if I get a second push on this one. The second push simply means we allow the signal to engage, and then I look for some extra momentum to bring me in. Now, counter trend signals, by their definition, are higher risk, right? Where I'm looking to sell into a strong uptrend. I've met the criteria for a counter trend, namely, number 1, I have a trend. Number 2, I've seen a retest of the trend, and the market is starting to falter. It's starting to fail. I've actually produced a sell signal. Now, when this prints on the low, we may actually get a number 2 signal printing here. There it is. There's the number 2, confirming, in fact, that we do have a counter trend opportunity. Now, I've mentioned before that trading is kind of a game of trade-offs. When you're doing a counter trend trade, you're trading off the probability of a successful trade for smaller risk. Because very often you can take a counter trend trade with very little money at risk. But my profit objective is not, like I say, too terribly ambitious here. So if we break down below these lows, there's a pretty good chance we're going to see the market try to drift here to the hard edge. not down. Obviously 6302 is going to be a little bit of a stumbling block. If we can get through there, I'm fairly confident we will see 6296. Come on. Marizo's asking, I'm not an NQ expert, that's the NASDAQ, of course. What do you recommend doing to become profitable with Raptor in a reasonable amount of time? I think what you should do, regardless of the market that you're trading, it doesn't have to be the NASDAQ. That's why I said I'll pull up any market you're interested in. I think what you should do, however, is become proficient with your signals and prove to yourself that your signals work. And how do you do that? Well, I think one of the easiest ways is just to take your Raptor chart, and what I would do is I would go here into my indicator window, find my Raptor tool, go to the very bottom and turn off the arrows. So go here to do not plot. Then just simply grab your scroll bar, move back randomly, and now play it forward bar by bar. And first off, see if you can't identify the signals. Oops. And try to avoid doing that. Roll it forward bar by bar. See, this is why I want to turn off the arrows so you don't get a prompt like this. Identify the signals, decide whether or not the signal meets your criteria for taking a trade, and then see how the trade works out. Yeah, I got to reset that. And then just see how the trade works out. Did the trade work out? If yes, great. If no, then you need to decide, okay, why did that trade not work out? Were my stops too tight? Did I misread the signal? Remember, the number 3 signal is a continuation signal. We need to have something to continue. Maybe my stops were just too tight over the last swing low. See, in this case, that's the case. Which brings me to Rod's question. Rod is asking, on that late filter entry signal, where would your stops be? Well, ideally, my stops are 2 swings back. For me, that's the safest place to put my stops. The market is very, very rarely going to take out your last 2 swings. Now, when you get multiple swings at more or less the same price level, you can consider those all one swing. I think a mistake that some traders make in trading is they start to micromanage. So they'll say, oh, well, okay, here's 1 swing, there's 2 swings, so I'll put my stops right there. Well, yes and no. Technically, yes, those are 2 swings, but they're not really 2 swings. I would kind of consider these swings here as 1. This would be swing number 2. So your ideal stop is actually down here somewhere near the low of the morning. That's going to, so if you're in here, out here, that's kind of going to give you maximum staying power. The market obviously drifting a little bit lower, we're going to anticipate a little bit of a reaction, right? Because if this is truly a trend change, we're going to see a little bit of a bullish push through here. At that point, let's say this next bar presses higher. At that point, I'm going to start to roll my stops in. So while I may have started the trade with $400 risk, at this point I've got, 120, 130. And then if the market keeps going higher, it may hiccup one more time, in which case I'll bring my stops up again, and then it's either going to continue lower or it's going to continue higher. It's that second attempt that you can get a little bit more aggressive on, because that's the one where where push comes to shove, where the buyers or sellers really need to come through or they're going to lose their grip on the marketplace. Remember, when you leave a bigger initial stop, that's just your safety net. That's your parachute. That's in case the world comes unglued, you don't lose everything. But as far as managing your stop, well, of course, you can always manage your stop as the market conditions dictate. So I've got the same thing going on in reverse now here on my NASDAQ short, right? So here's the buyer's response to the selling. Now I'm going to see how serious the sellers are. If the sellers get serious about pushing the market down, well, then I can start to bring my stop in. But until I see some renewed selling, it's going to be more difficult to roll my stops. So the buyer is getting a little bit of help here from this primary resistance line. And sometimes, if it looks like the market is just struggling too much, I'll bring my stops in as well. But keep in mind, one of my bad habits is to roll my stops too aggressively. I will sometimes get myself stopped out prematurely. With a wide enough stop, almost any trade can be profitable. Years ago, I heard about a cattle trader who the market was moving limit down against him, and he kept buying options, cattle options, because the option markets are still open even though the futures market is closed. Because he knew his market, and he was trading them, I think, $3 million at the time or something. So he had very deep pockets. And of course, when the trading resumed, as happens very often in a limit market, he recovered all his losses, and I think he made another million on top of that. So stop placement is very important. All right, so we've intersected the hard edge. You can see we're getting the warning now for the hard edge buy. That's the number 3 signal. And it is a continuation signal. Remember, we need to see something to continue. I think this qualifies. We have an uptrend. The market, there it is. The market is trying to decide which way it wants to go. The bigger trend, definitely up. My selling attempts here, definitely aggressive. So now you can see on that late filter entry trade that we were looking at, if this is a possible trend change, right, here's that bullish response. So we're long from up here. Initial stops were down here somewhere, or as far back as we can afford anyhow. So at this point, I've got a few bullish bars in my favor. I would definitely start to bring my stops up. Because if the market fails now, well, it's going to take out this low, right? If I get a bearish reverse at this point, it's starting to show me that the buyers are no longer in control, and that the sellers will, if the sellers are in control, well, they're definitely going to take out this low, so I may as well get out. And depending how aggressive you want it to be, you could even, bring your stops up bar for bar. I've done that too. Just remember, the tighter your stops are, the sooner you're going to get stopped out on a little hiccup. And this, of course, the problem with a counter trend trade as well. If you are in a counter trend trade, well, then you get stuck and you can't take a with trend trade. Oh, see, and there they go. So the counter trend, the evils of counter trend trading. And the little burst in the buying there also occurred once we took out the 63.10 level, because of course that's where the sellers, their exit orders were at. It's what is referred to as a short squeeze, or trap traders, or there's all kinds of different names for it. All right, we'll put that on the shelf for now. Hey, way to go, Mark. Mark also on board on that late filter entry signal. So it's stuck with it for another 375 on 2 trades, done for a decent 703 for a Monday. Yes, that is a very decent Monday. Nicely done. Sometimes the most difficult thing to do is just to trust your signal, place a decent stop, and just let the trade ride out. And not overtrade. That's a big one too. Yeah, I agree. Mark says you gotta wait it out. Alrighty, things a little bit on the quiet side here after that little run up. And a little bit of a sideways drift again. And here comes a little bit more selling once again. Marlene says the YM wasn't as scary because the Raptor never produced a counter-trend signal. I think what she's referring to is that long that we were looking at. Late filter entry. All right, well, we're an hour in. If the market is going to reverse on a trend, this is traditionally the time that it will do it. Again, not something that you can trade to the minute, but there are certain tendencies. Not much of a trend, really, so far. A couple little shots to the upside. We've got a macro pullback here in the hawk, but oh, now we're into yellow bars, so that spoils that signal. A little bit more bearishness showing up where the filter here on the Falcon is starting to change the Hawk and the Raptor both into yellow bars again. The Eagle still full on bullish. Absolutely. Dan's asking, good morning, Eric. Can you please explain the OCO function to me? Okay, OCO stands for one cancels other, and it's essentially a bracketing trade. So if you recognize that the market, say, is in a sideways trading range, and you would like to bracket to buy above or sell below, well, that's where your OCO order comes in. Your OCO order does not work using your set prices button. Your OCO order, first you need to turn it on, so you can toggle it on and off by clicking on it. It works by right-clicking on your chart. So you right-click on your chart, and then you can select your order. In this case, let's say I'm going to sell below the low, and I want to buy above the high. Now you need to know that these orders are live the moment you put them on your chart. So I have a tendency to place them away and then bring them into where I would like them to be. Here's a little note that if you're placing an order near the top of your chart, it helps to left click on the price axis and give it a little pull so you get that F symbol in the box. That's your auto formatting box. But what happens if you don't do that and you try to move this around is your chart's just going to go crazy like this, and you're going to lose all control of where you want to place your order. So if you pull on that price axis, it locks the chart, and now you can bring your order in where you want it to be. With your OCO order, these orders are connected. So let's say you want multiple OCO orders. Let's say we want to place profit orders now. So what you can do is you can click OCO again, toggle it on and off, and now you can right-click on your chart, and let's say you want to select a profit order up there and a profit order down here. So you'll notice your OCO function groups your orders by number and color, actually, but the number is more important. So OCO2 is linked to OCO2, OCO3 is linked to OCO3. If you cancel the one order, the order that's connected with it also cancels. That's the one cancels other. If you have a stop enabled, your OCO order will automatically give you a stop as per your stop strategy. So let's say I bring my order in now, and we're going to try to get filled on the short side. All right, so you see I got filled on the short side. It canceled my buy order, and it gave me a stop as per my stop strategy. You still won't get profit targets. Profit targets you'll have to set manually by right-clicking, selecting your profit order, and then you can move your profit order wherever it is you like. All right, so that's the OCO feature. I tend to use it a little bit more around crude inventories, or if I have a market that's in a very well-defined sideways trading range and I feel I should try to bracket it, I'll give it a go. Dan is asking, is the money management function still enabled? No, it will default to your quantity. So whatever quantity is registered here, that will become your OCO quantity. So let's say I have 8 contracts and I use my OCO, it will default to that value there. So you can see I have quantity of 8 and quantity of 8. But normally if you're running one of the stop strategies and you're running 1 or 2 contracts, you're probably, depending on your account of course, you're probably not going to put yourself, you're not going to be too lopsided as per your risk exposure. Another little rally up, slight rally up. So not a lot of signals today, but definitely the with trend signals coming through. The number 3 signal here, the number 3 signal out of the open. On the eagle, of course, the first with trend signal out of the open, and that has found its profit objective quite nicely. Also qualifies as a hard edge bounce, which tends to be a good signal in the eagle. We had a few signals here on the hawk this morning. The first micro macro cross here, actually not that many signals on the hawk. The first micro macro cross, that's really it. Everything else, I suppose you could count this as a 4-arrow consolidation right here. And the 4-arrow consolidation is the only signal I will take on a yellow bar in the hawk, but looks like that would have worked out for you. Yeah, pretty quiet morning for the most part. Here with the Falcon, we've got a trend change signal about 5-6 minutes into the day, and then the late filter entry signal, which gave us a little bit of heat, but also ended up working out. So far, so good. We're looking now at another test of the extreme. So we're looking at another retest of the high. No sell signal yet. The second attempt will probably have some follow through to it. I don't know if I can bring myself to try to short it again. And here too, even with this signal here, it's not necessarily that the signal has failed yet. It's relative to my stop, right? Had I left my stop a little bit deeper, I could still be short. Still sweating the trade. The bullishness continues. kind of stuck now, or things slowing down a little bit. I'm going to close the trading room just a few minutes early here this morning. I do have a meeting at the top of the hour. So unless somebody has a question, please type away. Anthony's asking to see the Aussie dollar one more time. One moment here. Is this thing on? Yep, it is. It's just not moving anywhere. What's up with that? Yeah, pretty dead market. I have the right month. Yes, I do. Okay, well, there's the Aussie dollar. Hasn't moved very much today at all. All right, gang, I will see you again tomorrow. And yeah, if you're continuing trading today, I think you're going to want to stay bullish. Look to buy pullbacks if you can. If we do see a topping, it's going to be rather pronounced. We're going to need to see the market take out one of these swing lows here, give us a retest, and then I think you'll have a safer opportunity to short. All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye for now.